The chair's back by the window now. I put it there myself, in the good light, the way she liked it. Winnie's reading chair, the one with the worn spot on the right arm where her hand always went. For a while it lived in the garage, under a moving blanket next to the paint cans. It does not live there anymore. It is a summer morning in Cranfield, Illinois. The coffee is black and too strong, the way I make it when no one is here to tell me it is too strong. The old beagle is asleep on my foot. His name is Tumbler. He is 14 and mostly ears. On the windowsill there is a tin box with a rooster painted on the lid, and inside the tin are Winnie's letters, 45 years of them, and I keep it in the warm spot on purpose. People said a woman saved me. For a while I let them say it. It is a strange thing, being rescued from a life you never asked to leave. But I am getting ahead of myself. My name is Roland Vickery. I am 71 years old. I spent 40 years as a locksmith in this town, Vickery Lock and Safe, from 1981 until I sold it in 2016. I am a widower. I am the man the whole town trusted with its keys, and in all that time not one soul ever thought to ask what I kept behind my own. That was fine by me. I like being underestimated. It is a quiet place to stand. A good lock keeps honest people honest. I used to say that to apprentices. What I forgot, late, at an age when a man should know better, is the other half of it. The danger is almost never the stranger at the door. The danger is the person you hand the key to yourself. Let me tell you how I handed it over, and how I got it back. I need to tell you about Winnie first, because everything else only makes sense with her in the room. We married in 1978. I was 23, and I could pick any lock in the county, but I could not for the life of me talk to a woman. She did the talking. She kept doing it for 45 years. She kept the books at the shop, and I kept the keys, and between the two of us, we kept a good deal more than this town would ever have guessed, and we never once said so out loud. That was the deal we made without making it. Live small. Bank the difference. Let people think what they think. The shop did well, not flashy well, steady well. I did the ordinary work, the deadbolts and the lockouts and the car keys, and then I did the work most locksmiths do not learn, the safes and the vaults, the bank jobs, the old-timers with the wheel packs and the drop levers. I learned to read a lock by feel, to listen to it. The right key never forces anything. It just turns, clean, like the mechanism was waiting for it. I believed that about most things in life, and it served me right up until it didn't. I will tell you one story about the work, because it says something. In 1991, a bank 2 counties over had an old vault jam shut on a holiday weekend, a manual dial safe from before the war, and they called 4 men before they called me. The other 3 wanted to drill it. I sat on the floor in front of that door for 6 hours with my fingertips on the dial and my ear on the steel, and I did not drill one hole. Near midnight, the last wheel fell into line and the bolt came back on its own, smooth as butter, no damage done. The bank president asked me how. I told him the truth. You do not beat a lock. You listen to it long enough that it tells you what it wants. Then you give it exactly that and not one thing more. Winnie laughed when I came home. She said I was the most patient man alive with everything except my own grief. And she turned out to be right about that, the way she was right about most things. We saved. We invested, careful and slow, a little every quarter for 30-some years. When I sold the shop in 2016, the money went where the rest had gone, into the accounts Winnie and I had built brick by brick. In 2017, we put all of it into a trust. Her name is on it, the Winifred Vickery Revocable Living Trust. Our 2 children and our granddaughter are the ones it is meant for. Then, in 2023, Winnie got sick, and then Winnie was gone, and the house went so quiet I could hear the refrigerator think. Grief is a locked room you carry around inside you. I know locks. This one had no key. I tried a lot of them anyway. Work, whiskey for a bad month. My daughter's phone calls. The dog. Nothing turned it. I would sit in Winnie's chair some nights, which was a foolish thing to do, and I would talk to her, which was a more foolish thing, and in the morning I would feel like a man walking around with his chest open. I was 70 years old and I did not want to be alone. That is the whole story right there, if you want the short version. A man did not want to be alone, and someone was counting on it. I met Charlene in the spring of 2024. She was 57 then, a widow, she said, warm and quick and easy to be around. She laughed at my dry jokes. She sat in the diner with me on Thursdays and did not seem to notice I was old and slow and dull with sorrow. She noticed something, though. I know that now. She noticed a paid-off house and a man who flinched every time the quiet got too loud. We married in October of that same year. Too fast. My daughter Roz told me it was too fast gently, and I told her that at my age I did not have the luxury of slow, and I watched that land on her like a slap, and I said it anyway. I am not proud of that. There was a prenuptial agreement. My old friend and lawyer put it plainly, and I insisted on it, mostly because of the children, and Charlene signed it with her own attorney in the room. She rolled her eyes doing it. She said, "If it makes the children feel better." She signed. I want you to remember that she signed it because she forgot, and forgetting it cost her everything. For a few months it was good. Or I told myself it was good, which is a different thing that feels the same from the inside. Then the small cuts started. They always start so small. The first one was the chair. I came home from the hardware store on a January afternoon, and Winnie's reading chair was not by the window. Charlene had a man from her church carrying it out to the garage. "We cannot keep the house like a shrine, Roland," she said, pleasant as anything, straightening a cushion. "She is gone. I am here now. You have to let the light into a room sometime." I did not say anything. That was my mistake, over and over all that year. I did not say anything. I told myself it was a chair. I told myself I was being a sentimental old fool. I let her move my wife into the garage under a paint-stained blanket, and I said nothing, and something in me went and sat down in the dark out there with it. The cuts got a little bigger after that. At a dinner in the spring, with people from her circle at the table, I mentioned an old job, a bank vault out in the next county, the kind of story I can tell well because I lived it. Charlene laughed before I finished. "Oh, he loves his little keys," she said to the table. 50 years of playing with locks. Do not get him started. He will talk your ear off about tumblers." Everyone chuckled. It is a small thing. It is nothing. Except it was not nothing because it happened again, and then again in different words. And every time it moved me a little further from being a man and a little closer to being the household's harmless old pet. "He forgets things," she started saying to guests, with a fond little pat on my hand. "Do not mind him." I do not forget things. I can still recite the change combination of a safe I opened in 1991. But you say a thing about a man enough times in front of enough people, and the room starts to believe it. And after a while, on the bad days, the man starts to wonder himself. That is the cruelest part, not the lie. The way the lie gets into your own head and rearranges the furniture. There was an evening in June that I keep coming back to. My reading glasses had gone missing, which happens, and I was patting my shirt pocket for them, and Charlene looked at Dexter across the kitchen and gave a little sigh. A performance for an audience of one that I was not supposed to be part of. "See," she said, "this is what I am dealing with." Then she found my glasses on top of my own head, where I had pushed them, and she held them up, and they both laughed, warm and easy, like I was a slow old dog who had lost his own tail. I laughed too. I want you to understand that. I stood in my own kitchen, in the house Winnie and I paid off, and I laughed along at the joke, because it was easier than the alternative, and because I had gotten so tired of the year that going along felt like rest. Shame does that to a man. It teaches him to help hold his own head under. That was the night, if I am honest, that some quiet part of me started keeping score. Not for revenge, for the record. A locksmith keeps a book of every key he ever cuts. I started keeping a book in my head. My daughter stopped coming around as much. I thought at the time that Roz was just busy, that she had her own family, that Etta had school. Later I understood that Charlene made her feel like a guest who had overstayed. A cold cup of coffee, a comment about people who only visit when they want something. Roz has her mother's pride. She stopped calling, and I let the distance grow, because I was ashamed, and shame makes a man go still when he should move. Then, in the summer, Dexter started showing up. Dexter is Charlene's son. He was 34 that year, all teeth and cologne, and a leather folder he carried like a doctor carries a bag. He called me Roland in a way that made it sound like a smaller word. He had ideas about my money. He always had a brochure, an indexed annuity, a restructuring, a way to protect me from myself. "We just want to take care of you, Roland," he would say, tapping the folder. "You should not have to worry about all this at your age. Sign where the little tabs are and let us handle it. That is what family does." I would nod and say I would think about it, and he would leave the folder, and I would put it in a drawer, and I would go out to the garage and stand next to my wife's chair in the dark for a while. Here is the thing you have to understand about me, the thing they never bothered to learn. I spent my whole life around mechanisms. I know the sound a lock makes when it is being set to open the wrong way. It is a small, patient, wrong little sound, and I had been hearing it in that house for months, under the laughter and the fond little pats, and I had been telling myself it was the wind. In September, I stopped telling myself that. I was looking for the spare reading glasses I keep losing in the little room we used as an office, and I opened the wrong drawer, and there it was. A stack of papers, neat, warm off the printer, held with a black clip. A durable power of attorney, naming Dexter as my agent, over everything. A restatement of the trust, Winnie's trust, adding Charlene as co-trustee and as the primary beneficiary ahead of my own children. A change of beneficiary form for my life insurance, $250,000, moving it off the trust and onto Charlene. And on top, a sticky note, in a slanted, careless hand I knew was Dexter's. 4 words. "Get him signed before the anniversary." I stood there and I read all 3 documents the way I used to read a difficult lock. Slowly, all the way down, every wheel. I did not skim. When you rush a lock, you break the pick off inside it, and then you have 2 problems. I want to tell you I felt rage. I did not. I felt the cold, clean quiet of a bolt sliding home. That is the honest word for it. Quiet. For months, I had been fumbling in the dark for what was wrong. And now, all at once, the mechanism gave, and I could feel exactly which way it turned. There is almost a relief in it. The not knowing is worse than the knowing. It always is. I did not take the papers. I photographed each page with my phone, careful, square to the light. Then I put them back exactly as I had found them. Same order, same angle. The clip turned the same way. A locksmith learns to leave a room the way he found it. You would be amazed what people will tell you when they are sure you never opened the drawer. That night, Charlene kissed me on the forehead and called me her poor tired man. I let her. I even smiled. The facts were not ready yet, and I have never once in my life forced a lock that was not ready to turn. The next morning, I called 2 people. The first was Errol Tandy. Errol ran the hardware store for 30 years, and he is the only man in Cranfield who understands locks the way I do. He is 72, and he has no patience left for anybody. I told him what I had found, sitting at his kitchen table with a cup of coffee going cold between my hands. Errol did not say a soft word. "Change the locks tonight, Roland," he said. "You, of all men on this earth. Change the locks, put her things on the porch, and be done with it." "And then what?" I said. "Then she tells the whole town I threw a grieving widow into the street. Then Dexter tells everyone the old man finally lost his marbles, just like they have been saying all year. A lock says, 'Keep out, Errol.' I do not want to whisper 'keep out' and have her slink off and land on the next lonely fool down the road. I want her seen, exactly as she is, in the light, and then I want her gone." Errol chewed on that. "You always did like to do things the hard way." "The right way and the hard way keep the same hours," I said. The second call was to Adele Kirshner. Adele is an estate attorney 2 towns over, and she was Winnie's friend for 30 years, and she is the person who helped us set up the trust in the first place. She listened to the whole thing without interrupting, which is a rare and valuable trait in a lawyer, and when I was done, she was quiet for a moment. "Roland," she said, "listen to me carefully. Do not confront her. Do not sign one single thing, not a birthday card, nothing. Do not let on. Let me look into it, and let me put what I find in writing. Facts on a page cannot be shouted over. A fight in a kitchen, she can win. A letter, she cannot." "How long?" I said. "Give me 2 weeks," she said. "Give me 2 weeks and I will hand you something better than an argument." So I gave her 2 weeks. And in those 2 weeks, I did the hardest thing I have ever done, which was nothing. I went to the diner. I let Dexter leave his folder. I let Charlene call me her poor tired man. I kept my hands in my pockets, and I waited. And every night out in the garage, I told Winnie's chair that it would not be much longer now. Doing nothing well is a skill. People think patience is passive. It is not. Patience is a muscle, and mine was screaming by the end of the first week. Dexter came by twice with the folder, tapping the tabs, telling me the market was moving and we should not wait. Soon, I told him. Let me get through the party first. I do not want to think about paperwork with a party coming. He liked that answer. He thought it meant I was softening. It meant the opposite. It meant I was setting the last wheel. Adele worked the whole time. She is thorough in the way the good ones are, the ones who have watched families come apart over money and learned to nail every board down before the wind comes. She called the insurance carrier and got the decline change in writing, with the date and the reason. She confirmed in plain public records that Dexter held no license of any kind, not for securities, not for insurance, nothing but a business card he had printed himself. She pulled the trust and read it front to back to be certain not one comma had been changed without me. And then she wrote it all down, 2 pages, calm as a grocery list, because she understood the thing that Charlene never did. A loud man can be dismissed. A quiet document cannot. Winnie used to say the right key never forces the lock. I had spent a whole year forgetting that. I was not going to forget it again. Adele called me on a Tuesday. "Come to my office," she said. "I have your letter." What she had found was worse than I knew and cleaner than I hoped. The prenup was ironclad. Charlene had signed away any claim to my separate property into the trust, with her own lawyer sitting right there, and Illinois would honor every line of it. The trust could not be touched, amended, or moved without my knowing signature, and I had signed nothing. The restatement in the drawer was just paper. Wishful paper, and the insurance. In September, someone had submitted that change of beneficiary form to my carrier. Not with my real signature, but submitted, pushed through as if it were routine. The carrier's own fraud desk had flagged it. The signature did not match. The change was declined and the company had noted the attempt, and Adele had a copy of that notice in her hand. "They did your arguing for you," she said, sliding it across the desk. "When the insurance company said no, that was not your word against hers. That was a company with lawyers deciding this smelled wrong. That is worth more than anything you could stand up and say." And Dexter, the man with the leather folder and the ideas about my money, held no license of any kind. Not for securities, not for insurance, not for anything. He was a salesman selling a product that did not exist, which was control of an old man's estate. Adele put it all in a letter. 2 pages, plain language, no shouting. Every claim backed by a document in her file. The prenup, the intact trust, the declined insurance change, copy enclosed, the unlicensed advisor. "It is all here," she said, "and none of it is loud. That is the beauty of it, Roland. You will not have to raise your voice one time." I folded that letter into the inside pocket of my good coat. It sat over my heart like a second steadier heartbeat. Now here is the part that Charlene arranged for me. Without knowing she was arranging it, she wanted a party, a first anniversary party. She booked the community lodge on the edge of town, the one with the long room and the little stage and the wood paneling gone amber with age. She invited half of Cranfield. She wanted the whole town to see the good deeds she had done, taking in a poor broken widower and giving him a reason to get up in the morning. She said as much to me over breakfast, glowing. "Everyone should see what I have done for you," she said. "And then, once things settle down, in a week or 2, we will just take care of that little bit of paperwork Dexter has been so patient about, while you are feeling grateful." I said that sounded fine. I said a party sounded just fine, because she wanted a room full of witnesses. And that, at last, was the one thing she and I could agree on completely. I called my son Neil, who lives out in Colorado, and I asked him to fly in for the party, and something in my voice made him say yes without a single question. I called Roz. I said, "I know I have been hard to be near this last year. Come to this. Sit near the front. I think you will want to be there for it." She was quiet a second. Then she said, "Okay, Dad." My daughter has good instincts. She heard the lock about to turn. The morning of the party, I took the letter out and read it 4 times. I do not fully know why. It was not going to change. Adele's words were the same on the 4th read as the first. Maybe I was making sure my hands would be steady. Maybe I was saying goodbye to the version of me who had let a chair go out to the garage without a word. I read it 4 times and I folded it back into my coat, and I looked at myself in the mirror, an old locksmith in his good jacket, and I said out loud, "All right, Winnie." Then I drove to the lodge. The room was warm and full and loud. String lights, a banner, a long table with a punch bowl. People I had known for 40 years, and people I had never met, all of Charlene's circle, and my Roz near the front with Etta in a yellow dress, and Neil beside them, looking like he had flown in ready for a fight and was not sure where it was. The toast started after the meal. They were kind. That is the thing I have to be fair about. Most of those people meant every word. A neighbor stood up. "To Charlene," he said, "who gave our Roland a reason to get up in the morning again. We were all worried about him, and then she came along." Glasses went up. Charlene put her hand over her heart. A woman from Charlene's church stood next. "I have watched this man come back to life this year," she said, and her eyes were shining, and she meant it, and that was the strange sorrow of the whole evening. Most of that room was full of decent people telling a story they had been handed and never thought to check. That is how it works. A lie does its best work through honest mouths. Charlene had not needed to convince the town. She only needed to convince a few and let the kindness of the rest carry it the rest of the way. Another. "To the woman who saved our Roland." More glasses. She squeezed my hand under the table, and she smiled at me, and I smiled back, and I felt the letter over my heart, and I thought, 4 times this morning, and I raised my glass with all of them. Then I set it down, and I stood up, and I asked in my ordinary voice if I might say a word. The room settled. An old man rising to thank his rescuer. They were ready to be moved. Charlene beamed up at me. Dexter, near the wall, had his leather folder in the bag at his feet, the way a man keeps a tool close for the job right after the party. "Thank you all for coming," I said. "Truly, it means something at my age to look out at a room and see this many faces I know." I let that sit. A lot of kind people have said tonight that Charlene saved me, and I have let that story go around for a year now, because it is easier than the truth, and because I was tired. But you have all been generous enough to come out here tonight, and I think a room this kind deserves the true version. So I'm going to give it to you. Plainly, it will not take long. I could feel Charlene's smile begin to set, the way plaster sets. "No one saved me," I said. "I want to be clear about that because it matters. I was not drowning. I was grieving. Those look alike from a distance, but they are not the same thing, and someone in this room mistook the one for the other, mistook a man in mourning for a door left standing open." The room was very quiet now, the good kind of quiet, the kind a lock makes right before it gives. "I spent my life reading locks," I said. "So let me read a few things for you, and then I will sit down and you can all get back to the punch." I took the letter out of my coat. I unfolded it. My hands were steady. 4 reads will do that. "There is a prenuptial agreement," I said, "signed a little over a year ago by my wife, with her own lawyer beside her. In it she gave up any claim to the house, to my savings, and to the trust my late wife Winnie and I built for our children. She signed it herself. I have it here." I turned a page. There is that trust. It cannot be changed or moved or added to without my knowing signature. I have signed nothing, and yet in a drawer in my own house there is a document, printed and ready, that would quietly hand a co-ownership of it and the first claim on it to people who are not my blood, waiting only for my name. Somewhere a chair scraped, nobody spoke. "And there is a life insurance policy," I said. $250,000. In September, someone submitted a form to move that money away from my children and onto one person in this room. The signature on that form was not mine. My insurance company noticed that before I did. They refused it, and they wrote down why. I set Adele's letter flat on the table in front of me, in the light. The young man by the wall with the folder in his bag has been very patient about getting me to sign these things while I was feeling grateful. He is not a licensed advisor. He is not licensed as anything. I checked. So did my attorney, who wrote every word I just read to you, and who is sitting right there. Adele stood up from the fourth table. She did not raise her voice either. Every word Roland read is accurate, she said. I wrote it. The documents are in my office. Nothing he said tonight is opinion. And the room went silent, not an awkward silence, a verdict. I have opened a lot of safes in my life, and there is a sound the whole mechanism makes at the very end when the last wheel drops into place and the bolt is finally free. And this was that sound, except it was made of 100 people not breathing. Then one by one, all across that long amber room, people set their glasses down. Just set them down on the tables. It was the loudest thing I have ever heard. Dexter moved first. He came up out of his seat and crossed to the little stage and put his hand on my arm, to steer me away from where people could hear me. All right, Roland, he said, low and smiling for the room. That is enough now. You are tired. Let's get you home. I did not move. I have carried safes up basement stairs. A man's hand on my arm does not move me anywhere I have not decided to go. That is enough, I said, and I said it quietly, so that only the front tables caught it, which was all I needed. Take your hand off my arm, and take your folder home. There is nothing in it for you here. He took his hand off my arm. The room cleared slowly after that, the way rooms do when everyone in them needs to be somewhere else immediately, and no one wants to be the first to bolt. Roz got Etta out to the car. Neil stood near me with his jaw set until I put my hand on his shoulder and told him it was handled, that his old man had it handled, and I watched him believe it, which felt better than the whole rest of the night put together. Charlene and I talked in the emptying room. She started with anger because anger is loud, and she thought loud still worked. You humiliated me, she said, in front of everyone, after everything I did for you. No, I said. I stopped letting you humiliate me quietly. There is a difference. Tonight the difference had witnesses. That is all that changed. Then she tried the other key, the soft one, the one that had worked on me for a year. Her eyes went wet. She said we could fix this. She said grief had made us both do things. She said, could we not just start over? I looked at her for a long moment. She was good at this. I will give her that. A year ago it would have turned me. I am not going to ruin you, I said. The insurance company flagged what was flagged, and I am not going to press it further than it has already gone. You will keep what the agreement says is yours, which is what you brought, and you will go. I am not going to chase you, and I am not going to break you. I paused. I am also not going to know you anymore. Those are both choices I get to make, and I am making them both tonight. Roland, she said, please. Some locks, I said, are not meant to be picked twice. And that was the end of it. Not a scream. No security guard, no dramatic ending. Just a man and a letter and a room full of people setting their glasses down. Charlene was gone from the house by the end of the month. The divorce went through the way Adele said it would, clean and quiet, and governed entirely by 2 pages Charlene had rolled her eyes signing. Dexter I never saw again. His folder went wherever such folders go. The autumn after was long and gray, and I was more tired than I expected to be. Being right does not fill a house. I want to be honest about that. There were nights the quiet came back as loud as it had ever been, but it was my quiet again. That turned out to matter more than I would have guessed. The first thing I did the very first weekend was drive to the garage and pull the blanket off Winnie's chair. Errol came over and helped me carry it back in. We are 2 old men and it is not a heavy chair, but we made a production of it anyway. The way men do when the real weight of a thing is not the thing itself. We set it by the window in the good light. I put the tin of her letters back on the sill. Tumbler climbed up into the chair and looked at me like he had been waiting a year for permission, and I let him stay. I kept Adele's letter. That may sound strange. The thing was done, the marriage over, and still I did not throw it away. I folded it back into the tin on the windowsill with Winnie's letters and I'm not fully sure why, except that it belonged there. Winnie's letters were 45 years of a woman telling me the truth even when it was hard to hear. Adele's letter was the truth too, on a harder day, when I had almost forgotten how to tell it to myself. They keep each other company on that sill. Some nights I look at that tin and think a man's whole life can come down to a small pile of pages that told him the truth and a shorter pile that lied. And the only work that ever really matters is learning to tell the two stacks apart before it is too late. I learned it late, but I did learn it. Roz came home slowly. That is the right way for it to happen. You do not fix a year of distance in an afternoon. She sat at my kitchen table one Sunday in November and turned her coffee cup around and around and finally said, "I stopped calling because it hurt to be turned away. Every time I came, I felt like I was in the way. I should have pushed harder. I am sorry, Dad." "You are here now," I told her. "That is the only clock I am reading." Neil calls more than he used to. He says it is to check on the dog. I let him have that. Before he flew back to Colorado, he stood in the driveway a long time, not saying much, the way he has been since he was a boy. Finally he said, "I should have come home more this year. I could tell something was wrong on the phone and I let it go because it was easier." I told him a man cannot carry guilt and groceries at the same time, and to put one of them down, and that I would prefer it was the guilt. He almost smiled. Then he hugged me hard the way he had not since he was small, and got in the rental car. The town was kind in the way small towns are, which is to say without making a fuss about it. No one at the diner said a word about the party, but my coffee started showing up, already poured when I sat down. The fellow at the hardware store, Errol's old store, waved off the charge on a box of key blanks and said it was on the house. No reason given. That is how people out here tell you they are on your side. They do not make a speech. They just quietly stop letting you pay for things. And Etta. Etta is the piece I did not see coming, the way the young ones always are. She is 8, and this summer she has decided she wants to know how a key gets made. So we go out to the little bench in the garage, the one that is a workshop again instead of a place I hid my grief, and I show her the blanks in the file and the way you read the cuts. She is patient for a child. She has good hands. She asked me last week why Grandma's chair has to be right there by the window and not anywhere else. So the light finds it first, I told her. In the morning, some things you keep in the warm spot on purpose, so the good light gets to them before anything else does. She thought about that. Then she nodded, the way children do when they have filed something away for later, and went back to her key blank. A letter came from Charlene in the spring. I recognized the hand on the envelope. I read it once. It said some of what such letters say. I wrote back 2 lines and I kept them kind, because there is no cost to kindness once you have your key back and your door works. I did not answer the rest of it. The door stayed shut, and I stayed warm behind it in the good light with my wife's chair and my granddaughter's small hands learning the trade. That is the whole of it. That is how a locksmith handed over the key and how he got it back. If you have ever been called fragile by someone who was counting on you to believe it, if you have ever let a kind story be told about you because the truth felt like too much noise and you were too tired to make the noise, then you already know the thing I learned far too late in life. Grief is not an open door, and being alone is not the same as being lost. A person can stand in an empty house and still know exactly where every key in it belongs. If this story meant something to you tonight, I hope you will share it with someone who might need to hear it. And I would like to know, in the comments, about the time you finally stopped letting a lie be told about you. I read them. They mean more than you think. Thank you for spending this time with me. And remember this, whatever your age, however alone you feel some nights, a soft heart is not a spare key. You can stay kind and gentle and open to the world and still be the one who decides who gets to come in.